Mayor, you know. What was that?
Now you can have strawberries.
Yeah, see,
All right, we are on
shake.
the air for our June 2nd work session, and the first Councilor Stavanger will join us shortly, but we're going to go ahead and get started. And the first item on our agenda is our quarterly update on our council goal for Parks and Greenspace. So I'll turn it over to our Public Works Director, Peter Passarelli, and our Parks and Greenspace Development Manager, Adam Moore.
Good afternoon, everybody. I think we're going to take a little slight bent from normal going over the big spreadsheet. We do have a couple handouts that Adam has put out. We have a couple areas that we want to spend some additional time on. We'll get to it here.
So everybody has two handouts. First one is your goal action plan, which we've updated, which Peter mentioned. We're not going to go through the entire thing. You'll notice on that right-hand column, we've got some information with the green there about where things are trending, but we've got a lot of things on the agenda today. So we're going to spend about 20 minutes talking about Metro Community Choice, about 10 minutes on the Greenspace Management Plan, maybe a few more minutes than 5 minutes on Milwaukie Bay Park. We're talking about floating docks and other grants for Milwaukie Bay Park. We'll kind of plant the seed for a discussion coming in July on Kellogg community enhancements, and then any updates or questions from council. We'll spend the last 10 minutes or so. We also have a second handout. This one is for community choice. We will put the spreadsheet up on the screen, but I'll just go through them very quickly. And then you also have the designs. These all come from Metro. They're online now. They've been up there for quite some time. All the handouts for folks online or watching from home, those are all in the packet. Okay, so Metro Community Choice. So this is a partnership with Metro, and we are working with NCPRB, as well as Oregon City, Gladstone, Johnson City was involved for a short period of time. And Metro wanted to take the engagement, they wanted to do the engagement itself, they wanted to take it right to the community. And this is a project that they did 2 years ago in Washington County, and they brought it to Clackamas County. So they invited the community to submit ideas. You sometimes hear the community members refer to, well, I submitted my grant idea. Actually, Metro really sees these as just ideas that can be developed by anybody in the community. So there's been multiple formal workshops as well as online. So all those 172 ideas, they got shaped by everybody combined, some was brought. All of the projects have to be on public property. They have to be implemented by one of the partners, so that's either the municipalities that I mentioned or NCPRB for the unincorporated areas. And then we will not see from Metro final construction documents. We will basically just get what you have in front of you. So all of these projects will require post-award development, right? They require an 85, they require a match, which if it was the full $250,000, you'd got $85,000. Peter and I worked together to identify how much those match would be on each of the projects, as well as where that potential source comes from. But all these projects are going to require additional funding, design, land use, and permitting. Keep in mind, none of these projects have gone through our CIP. They haven't gone through the Planning Commission. We have talked about them over the past couple of months, and we've tried to respond as best we can, keeping things feasible and keeping things moving forward to a yes as much as possible. So relying on the community aspect of this project. However, we have right now inside Milwaukie 9 of the 30 projects that are left in the program that are being voted for right now. There are voting will begin on the 15th of June. And we have been getting some periodic information from Metro on where things stand so that we can budget and plan. And now council, we kind of have a few questions. As we go through the projects, just kind of keep in your mind which projects are priorities to you, and keep in mind that we'll see these probably in 3 to 5 years under construction, because we'll have a year or two to work out the funding, the design, and the grant award agreement, and then we'll have 3 to 5 years to construct them. But so which priorities, or which projects are priorities? How much staff time in that should be committed over the next year to 5 years? And somebody is going to have to work on these to bring them to a point where they're construction ready. Somebody is going to have to manage these grants. So how much time do you want to spend on these? And then just kind of a point of consideration, what should we do if all 9 of these projects within the city limits were to be recommended for funding? What would we do with that sort of situation? And how would we pay for everything and staff?
Before you go on, Adam,
Yes.
I mean, I understand you want to get our ideas about projects and priorities, but don't we want to wait for the vote before we do that?
Yeah, the vote's been going on
I know, but it's not
for about
finished.
6, yes, but we do have an opportunity to, do we want 3 projects from Milwaukie and only take the top three? Do you want the top 5? Do you want all 9? How many, at what point do we tell Metro what the cutoff is or what our capacity is? Because at this point, that's what Metro is asking from all their partners. How much capacity do you have? Can you do all the projects that you have on your list? And so to that, we bring the question
I
back
just
to you.
don't know how we can do that until we know what the community is voting on. Sounds like a cart before the horse, whether it's Metro or whether it's ourselves. Am I wrong there?
Well, I hear what you're saying, and I think there's some truth to that, but it's also, as Adam was saying, it's like, what's feasible for the city to continue to move forward in terms of, I guess we don't want to be at a point where we get an award project and we say, you know what, we can't do that, we don't have the capacity, or we don't have the potential match for all of them, right? So
I think it's about managing expectations. So Metro will be announcing these at a live Metro Council meeting held at Concord Community Center. They wanted to have the meeting in Clackamas County, so they will announce all of these along with the capital grants live. The public will be invited, and I think that they want to, to Pierce's point, they don't want to announce 9 projects from Milwaukie when we only have capacity for 5, and then we have to go and tell people, oh, we're sorry, you're actually not going to be able to. You got enough votes, but we can't do it, we're sorry. So I think they want to check in with us on that.
Well, I feel like we should have maybe had that conversation earlier. I guess I feel like, isn't the voting going to be public record? Isn't the tally of votes going to be public record eventually? And so that's going to be known that we had enough votes?
It could be. So the vote is not the final step. The vote is considered a recommendation. That recommendation will go to a community group. That community group will ensure that all the projects awarded meet the grant guidelines, which they should at this point, but also to make sure that they're spread out geographically. They will make the recommendations to the Met Council. Everything will be final when the Met Council votes on it. We've tried to keep things feasible, but at this point, you know, if we get to the list here, there's potentially $600,000 that we will have to come up with over the next 5 years to pay for these.
It isn't, I will say, and this is not meant as any kind of disparaging comment to Metro. I applaud their unique and participatory kind of budgeting process, but this is a unique way to run a process. And I think a unique way to kind of interface with lots of different jurisdictions that have different capital improvement plan and capital budgeting systems. So I think we're all, it's funky, and I think Adam has done, has worked really hard to keep Parv up to speed, to give feedback and input to Metro, to put things on this list in that potential match category that are feasible. But I think Yeah, I do kind of wish Metro had built into their process kind of more of a step, maybe before this last round of voting to have this conversation. And that didn't happen, and it's okay. I think that this so helps us be as prepared as possible to move quickly with the voting. That's correct.
And I don't think we're looking to say, don't do this or don't do that, but just help us with prioritization, so we have a sense of where those projects fall. I mean, ideally, it would be great if we're able to do all of them, but they all come with a map project or some kind of dollars that we can actually, and we've identified some fund sources to do that. It also takes up our time and effort to work on that. Some of these are on NCP committees that would require some additional coordination with NCPRD and future, maintenance of of those amenities. So those are all sort of considerations that are in our mind that we're trying to, we're thinking about and looking for help, looking for direction in terms of.
Well, I mean, we did our own internal appetite suppressant. We removed a couple of projects because we just said, these are no way gonna happen, right? So we exercised some of that, okay? And I guess I'm not too concerned about, the possibility of getting 9 awards. Because Metro is gonna make nice in the sandbox,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
So,
When is the date that they're doing their big announcement? And have they given us a date that we would have to respond back to them by about our capacity for projects?
We're gonna check it again next Monday. And we got some information from them last month about where things are, just for you all and the public. These are in alphabetical order for a reason. To give you an idea of where they sit on the list with the other 30 projects or.
I'm sorry, say it again?
These are in alphabetical order, these projects.
They're in alphabetical order.
Mhm.
I thought
Yeah, they're not in.
They're not in order as.
Yeah, I know, but I got that. That was, yeah.
And I guess what I would want to understand from staff is, if we are looking at this, is our limiting factor the capital that we would need for the match? Is it the staff capacity to manage 9 different projects? Is it some combination of the two? Like, help me understand from a staff perspective what you all would see as the limiting factors for us.
What is our capacity?
Yeah, I think, Adam started off talking a little bit about the match dollars and what we have in the CIP and not in the CIP. Right now, we have identified $85,000 in the CIP that we could utilize for one of these projects. So that's essentially one project match. And then the potential match pieces there, these are other programs or other funds that we could have that we could program in future biennium, right? And or amend our budget to capture those dollars. So, initially there's a resource constraint there on dollars available for match. And also with the work that we're doing, trying to get Milwaukie Park constructed, and that effort, our Greenspace management plan, some of the community amenity things that we're talking about with Kellogg. So all those are at play in terms of managing, personnel resources to get things done. So it's part of that. Adam did say that, this is over, we have 5 years to do this. Some of these projects can be incorporated into other projects or nest within other projects, I would say. The Swift Roost, that's a Bourbon House project that our facilities team will more than likely manage.
Well, I was going to say, before you start going through, I think it would be good to go through, but I wanted to also pose this question. So you have one identified as NCPRD's project. So I was at the meeting where that was discussed as being about the dog park. Somehow the dog park has completely dropped out of it. And it's a re-veg, a habitat restoration project, which is awesome. But we know there's Emerald Ash Borer, we know there's, some needs there in that. Would they lead that project? Is that not really one that is going to be taxing on our staff capacity?
Probably not on us.
Okay, and so I have the same question about the last one, which is on school property and promoted by North Clackamas Watersheds Council. I mean, it's our stormwater, so we would have some role, but is that one where other partners would take a bigger role and the demand on our staff time would be less?
Yeah, I think that's a really unique one, because there are multiple parties involved in it, like schools, city, and North Clackamas Watershed Council. It's an item that we're probably also gonna see identified in our stormwater system plan as a capital project to treat that water. There's some significant stormwater infrastructure that would go along with that. So that would more than likely be a internally managed project with coordination with an agreement with the school, right? We would have to develop that intergovernmental agreement with the school to work out those details there. But
Yeah, I think sometimes it's nice to look at these projects and, or any project and say, well, we have a partner involved that will take less time. And I think honestly, sometimes the truth is that coordination actually takes more time. Yes, that project on the bottom is on school property. We need to work out the IGA with them. I think that Nick, the Watershed Council has a lot of ideas on that project. They have a design that they're interested in, so yes, they would be involved, but they would also be involved in some of these other projects as well. Just getting back to Councilor Anderson's question, the announcement of the grants is going to be at their meeting on July 21st. That will be at Concord School during the day. That will also announce the capital grants and the other nature and neighborhood bond grants. There you pointed out that there used to be a dog park component into that project at North Clackamas. Metro, the nature and neighborhoods bond is focused on nature and access to nature, so they wouldn't pay for the dog park improvement, just like they wouldn't pay for traditional playground equipment. And I believe at some point NCPRD said, hey, we can't do dog park things. And we were informed that this project had changed just before the last vote. So there is a note on that. There's a couple other projects that were removed. The Railroad Avenue Trail project. That railroad trail is just too far out to be within this timeline. So we pulled that one out as a city. The connection to North Clackamas Park, there's about 60 feet of elevation change, a floodway, and a river detention pond in the area where people wanted to see. That would probably require at least one bridge. And it's just too expensive and too complicated for this program. And so we did choose to pull that one out. West felt the project, which originally started out as a trail connection project, but we switched to more just focusing on native plants. West felt that was too similar to one of the projects that they have going on with Oregon Bird Alliance, and so they put that one or just after the And so we had checked in on all these projects back when the list was 50. And so we just wanted to take some time to check in on these again, make sure people are aware of them and make sure that there's nothing out there that you are uncomfortable with or wanted to just check in. If you feel it's fine to get awarded 9 projects and we'll sort it out over the next 5 years, that's okay. But we just wanted to make sure we checked in. So the projects are access to Midland Springs. That would have an $83,000 match. That would be in the right-of-way south of the Wetland Conservancy work. It would provide an accessible entryway into those wetlands and hope and connect with whatever the Wetland Conservancy is going to do on their property. We are coordinated with them. They are a partner on this project. Metro's had several conversations with Patty, others over there. That could either be a good neighbor grant for that $83,000, or that could be worked into the stormwater CIP in a future budget. Fernberg nature-based play, we would be paying for the equipment. Metro would be paying for the other accessible components around it and some of those other natural things around that. As Peter mentioned, we would have to work out an IGA with North Clackamas Parks and Rec over maintenance. The playground at Fernberg, I would mention, is about 30 years old at this point. That is due to be replaced. And we would look at a unitary safety surface. We're considering really exploring work safety surfacing, which would be flat, accessible for all people to utilize. No more wood chips that don't get topped off every year like they should. Habitat restoration at Spring Park. Now the community wanted to see also a habitat restoration at Elk Rock Island. Some things on Elk Rock Island. Metro feels though Elk Rock Island is not accessible enough. And making Elk Rock Island accessible, I think as some of you know, is very difficult because that channel would require in-water work to make it accessible and an Army Corps JPA permit. So Metro wanted to see that moved closer to the mainland there.
But as I understand this one, it's a lot of, there's not a infrastructure type piece to it. It's really a restoration piece. So it is something that partners can help implement.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, we wanted to keep this one small and flexible. And yes, we've talked quite a bit with NCPRD. This one should have an asterisk next to it too, because it is at least in part on NCPRD property. The Swift Roost luckily is already in the CIP. This one has a built-in match. In fact, we have a lot more than $82,000 in there for that Swift Roost project. So this would add some community enhancements that weren't already in that CIP project. As Peter mentioned, the nature state at Water Tower Park, that is the only one that we could not identify a different source for. And we do have one just kind of generic community choice project in our CIP right now. We saw that as being the only fit for Water Tower. Fernberg Park also has some wetland restoration, so that's focused on invasive species, planting native plants, removing emerald ash for some perhaps interpretive signage, some bat houses, things like that. If we can plant some aromatic native plants around the wetlands, just a good restoration project there. That could be a good neighbor grant for a stormwater pellet. Already talked about the access to restoring the floodplain habitat at Mount Scout on Granite Creek, that's at North Clackamas Park. That used to include the dog park. The original idea was restore the area where the dog park is and build a new dog park over there. Well, now they're just going to restore the area. That was not a decision or a discussion that we were part of. That is eligible for a good neighbor grant, but we would see that like an NCPRD application. River access to Milwaukie Bay Park. We're going to talk a lot more about this later on, but we think that we can leverage phase 3 to fill that match. Now, this would have to be permitted separately, but we can leverage the design and those floodplain. See, that's built into phase 3. We think that this could be constructed probably right after phase 3. This can be done separately, but I think that the level of design, engineering, and permitting that are required there might be a little bit more than $83,000 from the cost. But we'll see how things play out with phase 3.
But you're not saying, I mean, you're seeing them as separate. Because I guess that's been one of my worries.
I think they're related.
I love this project, but I don't want it to slow the park down.
I think they're related. I think that you would have to permit it separately. If you permit phase 3 along with this, you're going to slow down phase 3. Anything below ordinary high water is considered in the river and a change to the river channel. So you're looking at an advanced floodplain permit and a lot of technical assistance or technical reports to go along with that. Some of that we already need to do for phase 3, so we could combine those and leverage those together and make phase 3 the match. Also, if you go below ordinary high water and you're going to impact, you're going to trigger, I should say, a joint permit application. And that's an Army Corps, Department of State Lands, and Department of Environmental Quality. We also, anytime that we do anything on the Willamette or in any one of our parks, according to code, we have to let all the state agencies know, including the Marine Board. I had discussions with the Marine Board about this. I've had discussions with all the permitting agents about this. In fact, a lot of those discussions happened 5 or 6 months ago. So I think that a ramp solves a current existing ADA problem and equity challenge that we have there. I think if we build phase 3 without that ramp, we're essentially telling people, hey, we've built all these inclusive amenities, right? We have an accessible splash pad, interactive water feature. We have an accessible bathroom and sensory-based playground and nature play area that's designed to be inclusive, but unfortunately, we only have stairs to go down to the water. This would solve that. So I think it's really important, but it would have to be permitted separately because phase 3 does not require that JPA nor any advanced flow.
For the interest of time also, I know there's gonna be more discussion on that, but we have that separately in this presentation. Let's focus on.
Yeah, and then we've already talked about the stormwater treatment of Kellogg Creek. That would be on school property. It was great. There were some school children involved in the last workshop there. That could be a stormwater grant or in the stormwater CIP or a good neighbor grant. So those are the projects. When I look at this list, we see some projects that are easy to get the dollar match for and that probably wouldn't be too much of a burden on staff. Other ones are completely brand new. Keep in mind that all the city permits, anything that would have to go through what we would normally do for a park project, most of our parks are zoned residential, so we would have to go through the community service use process. That could trigger, planning commission, public hearings, things like that. So there's still a lot of work to do. It's not like we're going to jump right into construction on July 22nd.
So, I imagine Metro had this come up in Washington County. What if we say yes to all 9? And then in year 3, we're like, we're not gonna be able to get to these 2.
Well, you can always give money back, though that does kind of hurt your reputation with the community and your relationship with the funder. Funders never want to take money back. It's a tremendous amount of work for them to do that. And they have statutory requirements to spend this bond money down. And if we say, hey, we've got this project to help you do it, they're not going to give that money to somebody else. And then 3 or 4 years now, we might create a problem for them with that bond. And that's not something we would do. So we want to be really sure when council, you would have to pass a resolution to accept these grants. And when we accept these grants and when we sign those IGAs, we want to be sure that we can work to get these done. Good partners.
In Washington County, as they have done this, have you talked to other folks with those cities or jurisdictions about their experience? Like, did they receive more grants than anticipated, or have they had challenges with these projects in the timeline?
No, I haven't really talked to anybody in Washington County. I will say that initially, Metro thought that 12 to 15 projects might be funded. I think at this point, the indication is that perhaps, depending on which projects raise the top, there could be more than 15 projects that are funded out of this round in Clackamas County.
How many competing jurisdictions are there now?
There are 4 other parks.
3 other.
North
4
Clackamas
total.
Parks and Rec,
Gladstone,
Oregon City, Johnson City dropped out.
Oh, I
Yeah,
didn't-
they must have dropped out. They were involved very early on.
okay. I don't,
So do we have
go ahead.
any thoughts on what our priorities are as a council or?
I suspect we would all rank them differently. I mean, we've all probably put in our votes and,
I would make a suggestion.
yeah.
To keep it simple and keep it moving forward, what if we just went around the table and said, what's your number 1 priority?
Oh, I don't, yeah. Maybe top 3.
I'm trying to keep it simple.
I don't want to pick
I didn't
one.
say that, I didn't say that with them. I just said, I think most people can pick one. I think it's much harder to pick 3.
Oh, no, not for me.
Well, okay, you're an individual.
One way you might do this is allow the community votes to play out the way that they do, but give us some direction on, hey, we don't feel like we can do more than 3 projects. We feel like we can do more than 5. We feel like we can do more than 5. Obviously, there's going to come a point where, money comes into play as well. And sometimes it's easier to stretch this because some of these projects are already in our CIP.
I guess this is where I'm kind of unclear at, and I could use you and Peter's advice. I don't really have a sense of what the limits of staff capacity actually are in this, what it would take, like how unreasonable it is to say do all 9. What you described to me, I look at, and I think this is a wrong interpretation, but from you outlining the potential matches, I see the Naturescape at Water Tower Park is the only one where we have to look for any funds. There wouldn't be additional funds that we could draw down to reduce the cost of the city. But I don't have a full sense, like each project has a different funding pathway to get the match. And so all of that together, I just don't feel like I know enough to be able to give you good guidance on what I would limit or draw a red line at.
Yeah, and I think it's also hard for us to talk about what staff capacity is because there's a $12 million project kind of up in the air.
Sure.
I think that staff right now we are nearing capacity. In fact, on a $12 million project, we're at the point where there's really not a whole lot that we can do without that as a staff. But I think that we are 90% in that capacity with phase 3, where it's at right now. 80, 90.
I mean, when I look at this, one of the things, we talked a little bit, admin comment about information with other. So there are a couple of projects out there that would require some additional coordination with NGP, and that might prove to be more work than we have capacity to do to keep things moving.
And to put a finer point on it, more capacity and more cost, because if these IGAs with the county are signed, any capital project that we want to do in a city park requires a project-specific IGA, which they may propose that they do not maintain that.
That's a control.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
There,
We may have to maintain these.
yeah, and security does not want to.
Yeah, I mean, if they sign our IGAs,
If
right?
it's in our IGAs.
If they don't sign our IGAs, then they do have some obligations here. If they sign our IGAs, then we have to negotiate project-specific IGAs for anything over 25,000. Is that what it was? 10,000.
I think there's also some current one we do.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, even if they don't sign it on our current IGA, we have to request that they
Maintain. I mean, yeah.
I mean, I think we're also willing to move all of these together, and how it plays out, and see how the voting turns out, and make decisions at that point too.
Knowing that they are announcing this July 21st, could we come back to this at a later date? Could we come back at the end of the month after voting has been announced, or in our July meeting, or is that not enough time for Metro to be able to respond?
We can check in with Metro to see. I mean, I suspect that we're going to get the information much sooner than it's public. I already have non-public information on the building. Just want to see this. But I think we can check in with Metro and say, hey, we're a little bit unclear. We want to dive into this a little bit more. Beyond June 15th, when do you need to hear from us for cutting down this list? I think understanding from you all how much of this list needs to be cut down or we want to be cut down would be helpful. Is it 1 or 2 projects that we want to remove from there? Is it the bottom 2 projects, or is there a specific project that's concerning?
I'm hesitant to remove any project because the voting's still going on.
Yeah, and these are things that people in the community have all been, very excited about. I mean, I get that there were 2 at Fernburg, so maybe only do one at Fernburg. I mean, I also want to think about geographic distribution and parts of town, and thinking about this. I mean, I guess, my inclination right now is all of them. And if we do come back and need to, pare down, I suggest Emma create a Menti poll. And we do it that way.
Well, can't we just use the results from the voting to kind of narrow it down? Because that'll tell us.
Well, it sounds like the results from the voting won't be public until July 21st. Or they won't even, I don't know how.
I believe it's July 21st.
So they are making awards on that date.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's,
They are
again, love Metro. It's a little bit of a weird process.
The whole premise behind participatory budgeting is that we're really not the ones making these decisions.
Absolutely.
But the challenge then with implementation is if you want guidance from this body, we really have to see which of the projects the public chose first. And then I think to be true to the goals of participatory budgeting, we have to then weigh in on what is our capacity to implement this and what is the feasibility for certain projects. I mean, I haven't had a chance to meet with anybody yet about the nature skate at Water Tower, but I live really close to Water Tower and I have questions about that. I think that project highlights a need for skate facilities and a need for, something really dynamic like that in North Milwaukie, but I worry about the size of the carve outs. Are they big enough? Are they so big that then little kids are gonna be running into the traffic of it? It's like with participatory budgeting, you're getting these ideas that aren't baked, they aren't baked in a system. And there's this wonderful process within that because you get ideas that maybe wouldn't have come forth previously or ideas that, I don't know, there's this freedom to it. But there has to also be a reality check within those systems.
Yeah.
Because then the system is on the block, to implement it.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are some things that we can't do or we don't have the capacity to do.
What I'm hearing is we want to see a list after the voting has been done, that rank list that the voting produces, and then a staff recommendation tied to that list about what our actual capacity could look like with guidance on how we would treat things before we weigh in. We don't want to, I worry that we're punting this, and I hear you all want us to give you some guidance. We're saying we don't want to get ahead of the participatory budgeting, but when you come back with a ranked list by voting, also coming back with some type of sense of where your capacity would be to deliver that.
I wonder, Peter, the July 7th CIP conversation, which I know is already chock full of other things, but if on that night, we could ask Metro if we can be sharing any information with and I think this is helpful feedback for them. Again, to exactly what you said, Counselor, we are really excited about this process. We want to be really supportive, but $600 and something thousand is a lot and we want to show up on the 21st excited, not worried that we're going to be disappointing some community members. So could they share with Adam, here's the information that you can publicly discuss on that night, that then we could discuss in the early July.
No, I think this discussion is really helpful because all the things that we're talking about are the things that Adam and I have talked about too. And we're just trying to vet and trying to figure out is there guidance to be had? And if there's not yet, we're comfortable with that and we want to move forward. But if there was some sort of decision or that needed to happen, then we wanted to at least have that opportunity to discuss that. So
the things that I look for when I look through a list like this are any of these projects in alignment with our current CIP, which gives us a hint into capacity and allocated capacity.
Yep.
When we think of match, are there good pathways forward for potential match that make sense and wouldn't be an additional burden for either the community partners or our jurisdiction to take on? And then just in terms of like almost like a planning check, do the projects align with the best practices that we use to implement similar projects? So like, are any of that, like, if the, I'm just using an example as the Swift Roost, that's gonna, maybe the proposal would be like, we're gonna build a 300-foot, chimney that is going to have like a cherry on top. And, you would take that idea and you'd be like, well, actually, there are some risk and liability questions here. There are some, seismic issues with a huge cherry on top. That's the kind of input that I would be looking for, from you in terms of almost like color scale, like this one's green, good to go, we can implement this if we have the capacity and the funding available. This one's sort of orange. There are some risk or liability issues that we would take into consideration. It might take a little bit more capacity or a little bit more funding than the proposal to be able to make that happen. Or like this one is red. Does that make sense?
It does.
If you feel like that analysis is already represented in the, then I feel like that's all Metro needs at this point. And when we can mesh this table with the ranked, the voting from the community, then that's the next opportunity for us to have a good conversation about this.
Yeah, so we've been looking at Metro behind the scenes all throughout the process, from the idea through all the different workshops on feasibility. How do we work this to something that is feasible? I think at this point, what we're kind of looking for is there a dollar amount that is too much? Is it right? And then if 5 projects fit under that dollar amount, great. If 6 projects fit under that dollar amount, great. But how much do you want us to spend? Do you want us to spend $634,000 or do you want us to spend $200,000?
Well, to me, that's, you've called out one that we would be drawing on, sort of a new budget line item for, but otherwise you identified potential match. To me, $634,000 over 5 years that's tolerable. That's a tolerable amount to me. If you were saying $634,000 over the next 2 years, that would be different, right?
Yeah, it might be, that's fair.
And then would that amount be scaled out across the timeline? Like certain projects needing more on the front end, needing less on the front end? Does it balance, or would we need to come up with that amount?
There will be some spread. It will be more like chunky peanut butter. Right?
I mean, to that question, we haven't scheduled these out, figured out like where they fit in the timeline.
Yeah, and honestly, like, we only have one is in the CIP, and we have room for one of these projects in the CIP. The other ones are not in there at all. Right? The Swiffer's house is going to happen no matter what, right?
What is the capacity needed to write the grants for match? Is that on us? Is it on the community partners?
We wouldn't have, there aren't any, those are, we could use our internal good neighbor for stormwater. So there's no additional, at least based on these budget allocations and estimates, there's no need to go out and get additional grants from somewhere else. So.
Yeah, I think it sounds to me like it's more about staff time capacity.
It is. I mean, it's putting together, working with the designer to, develop the final plans and specifications, putting them out for bid, and then managing each of these individual projects. And And some of them, like I said, some of them can be incorporated in with a larger project or in parallel with the larger project. And then some of them are gonna have to, they're gonna be standalone. So,
So can I ask, like, both the North Clackamas Park and the Spring Park have some nexus to the work that NCPRD is supposedly going to be doing on Emerald Ash Borer? So does that alleviate some of the burden on our staff or not really?
the restoring the floodplain habitat.
Yeah.
Managing that project will still require some coordination from our force team and natural resources.
Sure.
If tonight you're looking for direction on, is there some budget amount? I think I would agree with what the mayor was saying. This 630, granted, there's already about 160 that are already baked into our CIP. Stretching that over 5 years seems reasonable, especially given that we just reduced our CIP by 37%. I think the outstanding question for me is, even if we increased or we found the funds to be able to fund these projects, do we have the staff capacity? If your question is just, is there a money threshold that you all are comfortable committing to now or sending you that signal? I'd agree with the mayor that this seems like a reasonable thing to bake into our CIPs over the next 3 cycles.
That's what I'm trying to find out. I have the same question as, do you feel that staff has the capacity to take these on over the next 5 years? I feel like we're kind of all in agreement with funding, but it's more on staff if you guys can do
I
that.
think, and I'll pull out the restoring the floodplain one separately. I think eight projects with 8 individual projects is a lot. And it would really require some additional evaluation, but looking at 8, and if I'm saying, Adam, these are all your projects to do, that's a lot. Right?
And please
When you're
build.
laying this over MVP,
Right.
then it's not doable.
Yeah, so I mean, Milwaukie Bay Park, we're trying to, that's number 1 priority.
Yeah.
So there's some additional evaluation there, and I
Yeah.
think, as Councilor Staff Jordan mentioned, we can certainly come back with that maybe prioritization matrix.
I'm going to suggest that we slot into the July 7th council meeting an update on the voting. Let's ask Metro what we can share, update on that, and then I can set up a mentor for you. And we can do some prioritization here, just so we're, because I agree with Peter. You guys have a Parks and Greenspace goal. I want to say yes to everything. I love the process, and I think this is really exciting. I think it's very daunting when you add in a very large project.
And we've tried to keep everything as many projects moving forward as possible, trying to keep it at a yes, so people can go on and get settled.
Well, and it's interesting that we're at this decision point, because I think when this whole thing started, we really thought we'll get 2, 3, maybe 4, not that we would potentially get 8 or 9. So,
And that was our feeling going into the final vote.
Yeah.
But, recent discussions with Metro suggest that there could be more than they initially anticipated.
We've done a lot of engagement on it, so we even have,
Well,
Adam has.
I will say our engagement has actually been very hands-on, with the exception of some A-frame signs on the site, a flyer and 1 email. The community has really taken over the engagement. So that is really on them. When Metro says, hey, wait a second, what's going on? We say, we shared the information and other people are picking it up. I don't think that when we started, I expected to have community members going door to door. That happened before the first vote. I don't know what's going on out there right now, but it sounds like.
really going door to door. Okay. We definitely see lots of social media, especially around the Milwaukie Bay Park one, but yeah.
Barb was knee deep in this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is like we have discussed this with R. I think, the staff component, I think we can find a way to work that out. But, if somebody came to me and said, hey, Adam, where's your $634,000? I would go, oh my God, I don't think we have that. Shoot. So now that you all aren't saying that, I think as a staff person, as a partner on this project, I feel a lot more comfortable, right? If you all had said, wait a second, we really only feel like we got $300,000 in there, then you would say, okay, well, when the votes come back, we will pay for all that we can. But if you feel that $634,000 is feasible, then I think we let the votes play out between now and June 15th and see where that's land.
And if you come back with the kind of matrix that Councilor Stavanger was talking about, another piece of data I would like to know is how interested and engaged the school district is on that last project on the list.
Yeah, I will say that we have not talked with the school district as staff. Metro has talked with the other partners on these projects directly.
Okay.
It's kind of their,
Okay.
so.
All right. Thank you.
That was a good 10-minute discussion. So I think, as you know, and I'm going to jump through this really quickly, we can talk more about this later, but Greenspace management. We have a lot of green spaces and a lot of properties that are not included in NCP. We have opportunities that come up where we have to make decisions that have ramifications. We don't necessarily know how we are going to, as we kind of discuss these different projects, we don't necessarily know how we're going to maintain all of these things. And so we felt as though we need to get an RFQ out there to get some help to do some community engagement and really think as a city on how we are going to manage our green spaces that aren't in NCPRD that might require additional resources. And so we're looking at kind of a multi-faceted plan, one on a system level, and then some help on some specific properties. On a system level, right, how do we maintain this? Are we cutting the grass there every week? Are we cutting the grass there every 2 weeks? Or are we gonna let it grow natural? Operations, right? Is this the sort of place where somebody can rent out the pavilion? Or is it just a drop-in sort of situation? Staffing and equipment. Do we need to hire more people or purchase more equipment? Use and development, right? Is this property something that we could build a roller coaster on or a playground on? Or is it something that we should keep more at passive recreation with an accessible nature trail only? Is it the sort of thing where it's a water quality resource area and we just want to keep that natural and let the water infiltrate, not have people access it at all? Planning and zoning, right? We have so many parcels of land compared to the amount of actual properties on our parks and green space map, right? We have things that are in our comp plan as being parks that are partial right-of-ways that haven't been vacated, parks that are made up of 14 parcels. Right? I'm working on a grant for the state that's due on Friday. I have to provide all the information on all those parcels that make up Milwaukie Bay Park. Should we get some recommendations and some assistance on doing the land use to combine all these properties into one parcel and zone them as parks? We don't have to go through the CSU process. Investment, where do we invest? How? How do we gain that investment? Management, right? When somebody calls with a complaint, where does that call go? Who answers that phone call? How do we communicate changes with the community, right? One of the things, this is something that came up from Park said, hey, I went to the park one day and there's a yard sign that says they're not going to maintain it as much. What the heck does that mean? Where's the communication? Well, that made us think about, man, how do we communicate things at the different detention ponds or the different natural areas that are not inside the CPRD? Inclusive access, how do we make it possible for everybody to feel welcome there? Should we make it possible for everybody to feel welcome? Some places might not be accessible for very good reasons, but we don't know what those reasons are, right? We have to identify. Decision-making criteria, I think that's the big one, right? Somebody came to us with community choice opportunity, and we had to decide, are we going to participate or not? Or think about it even simpler. Somebody comes up to us, some unknown benefactor says, I got a check for $1 million. Got to spend it in Milwaukee on a playground. Well, we have 18 properties. Which 18 are going to get that $1 million check? How do we make that decision? What values, what benchmarks, what demographics are we looking at to make those decisions? Volunteer management. We've got all sorts of volunteers working on our property. How do we manage them? How do we harness those volunteers? How do we cultivate them into grant match? How do we communicate better our volunteer opportunities? How do we make sure that we're not liable for some of the things that they're doing? Temporary improvements we saw with like the placemaking grants or other opportunities that were out there, people wanting to do temporary improvements on our parks and green space. We don't have any guidance, any guiding plan to help us make the decisions on yes or no as a staff. And we're treating these all as separate things. Philanthropic relationships. We have a Milwaukie Parks Foundation. There's the Rotary out there. There's Metro. There's all these, the state and other people that we look to for grants, that we look to for private fundraising. How do we cultivate those relationships better at the city? Partnership opportunities. Who's out there that we aren't working with now? Who do we work with better? Green infrastructure value. All those trees out there, all that land out there, those are utilities that provide a lot of services to us in the city, particularly because we have to manage our stormwater and protect our groundwater resources for our drinking water. Right? So what is the equivalent value of those things so that we can make more apples to apples sort of decisions when we're talking about. And then finally, speaking about land, where do we acquire property and when? On a site level, right, Elk Rock Island is not been a part of NCPRD's IGA for quite some time. We have a lot of residents that want to see if we do a lot of work out there. Yet we don't have a comprehensive plan for Elk Rock Island. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that the Greenspace management plan would be comprehensive plans for these three spaces or other ones necessarily. But I think we at least need to be able to communicate to the people that we have put together a public plan, and Elk Rock Island is a natural area. For example, playing with that example, Kronberg Park is an active use park, right? Kellogg Creek, right? What is that creek gonna look like when that dam comes down? How do we maintain it? How do we operate it? Right? Those require some site-specific things, and so these site-specific plans would tell us exactly, right, what is the individual stewardship, maintenance, and operation plans for those properties. So you can stop, fretting every time we talk about doing something in the Kellogg channel. We don't have to ask who's going to maintain this. Right? We really want to stop asking that question. But the idea is that the plan would be developed with the community, focused on future use, staffing and equipment requirements, right? What is the immediate need to bring, say, like if these IGAs are signed, for us to maintain Milwaukie Bay Park starting in 2027? The IGA requires at this point. So, Milwaukie Bay Park. I was just going to touch a little bit on the funding because I want to make sure that the community and you all are clear on where funding is at. And you'll notice that there's an asterisk here when it talks about cost. That's because this is a staff number. We don't have the consulting team. We don't have the general contractor on board. The general contractor will tell us exactly how much Milwaukie Bay Park will cost. At this point, I have what they thought it would cost 4 years ago, and I've done some. I might have an undergraduate degree in economics, but I don't know exactly what we're going to do. I'm not a general contractor. So take this number with a little bit of a grain of salt. But even if those IGAs are fine, we're looking at an additional $4.3 million that we're trying to raise. Metro Capital Grants, we'll hear about on July 21st. We did a very excellent site visit at the park with the community group that would be evaluating that project. We've got a $1 million grant that we're going to submit on Friday. That would be a fall announce. Now, the federal grants that are controlled by a state have been pushed back. They are going to be a fall application in November, either end of October, early November. They wouldn't announce the award until the following fall. which puts us right around the end of November, right? So right around Thanksgiving, Christmas, we're working out grant agreements. You can't start construction with that money around Thanksgiving or Christmas, right? So anything that's paid for that money is looking at a spring 2028 start. We don't have the capacity without that consulting team to try to get creative to figure that out. So if you're looking at paying for, also, if you're paying for only part of the project with federal funds, federal requirements will apply to the entire project. So our ability to get creative will be somewhat limited. I guess what I'm trying to say is, and not to put too fine a point on it, but at this point, right, if we go after federal money, whether that's a land and water conservation fund grant or a regional trails program grant or some other federal funding that the state controls, right, this project is probably not, phase 3 probably isn't starting construction until the spring of 2028. Now, any other grant opportunities that are out there, we are researching continuously. CARB has made it a goal to help track down those smaller parts of money, right? Because the Lion Clubs have a grant and Rotary step up. Of course, we know that the Milwaukie Parks Foundation and Rotary and others have said that they will step up. Community members have said, hey, I'm looking for a place to donate to the project. Who do I talk to? We send all those people to the Milwaukie Parks Foundation. But I just want to make sure that you and the community is aware that the signing of the IGA does not get us, at least to what we think we need in the bank to do the project as it was designed in 2022. Speaking of construction readiness, now the project in 2022 might have been ready to permit. In 2026, it is not. And as I mentioned, we'll need the designer, the general contractor before we can proceed much further, but we will need a new arborist report with an inventory of all the trees on site. We'll need the new existing conditions, and we'll need to know what the arborist requirements are and how they have changed since 2022, right? So we're looking at now a project that was developed prior to tree code. We are now doing anything that's within the critical root zone of a tree. We're doing all that construction by hand. We're having an arborist on site when we're in that area. We're bringing tree protection zone on. Those are costs that we did not anticipate in 2021, 2022, because the tree code had just passed. And the tree code has changed a lot since then. Land use application, unfortunately, our land use application has expired. We'll need a full new environmental report, and we'll need to go back to Planning Commission.
Really?
Yes. Floodplain permitting has all changed. We will need a new floodplain permit. Luckily, that's only at the city level. I verified that with the different agencies. Also, keep in mind, anytime we add anything here, any additional partner, design, phasing, engagement, or funding sources, that all multiplies the capacity, right? We're not talking about addition, we're talking about multiplication. And that's going to equal an additional cost and time to the project. So we want to be really careful about how we add things to the 2022 design. Keep in mind, once we get to the point where we're starting construction, you're looking at 11 to 15 months of construction, depending on when you start. Now, the budget that we're working with off 2022 that we've inflated and escalated does have some money in there for water removal, for dewatering the construction site, but it's not a lot. I don't know to what extent we're prepared to do all improvements.
So can I ask about the trees? So, I guess I'm really bummed about the land use application being expired, but the trees that are, most of the trees are west of the sidewalk, and so they're not an area where we're gonna be working except potentially with the, the community choice grant, the water access.
I'm looking to cut you off, but there are 49 trees along the trolley trail. The trolley trails, so most of that work would, all that work would happen within the tree protection zone, and some of it within the critical root zone.
Okay.
Now luckily, there is a 2-foot root barrier there at the trail when it was installed, so that will help us. You've got the 85-inch coastal redwood,
Yeah, the big
where we're gonna have to find those roots. We might wanna cut those roots now, if we're gonna have to cut them in the future. There's pre-construction, fertilization, and watering that we might wanna do now. And then we have, about 5 to 7 trees in the, stormwater planter right now.
Alongside the parking lot? That's
Yes, and that's the area that was gonna be the light watercraft drop-off area and stormwater area after it was our construction. So that area is going to require some redesign, or we're gonna have to remove those trees and mitigate. Now, we're planting enough trees for mitigation, but we will have to pay the fees. And the coastal redwood that's there next to the stormwater planter is 17 or 18 inches.
The $4.35 million gap or whatever it was, that's after you've inflated costs. Okay. And when do we need to have funds in hand to be able to build? Do we need to be able to close that gap before we start construction, or like how much? You talk a little bit about the federal grant uncertainty. I guess I'm a little unsure what
Yeah, well, it's going to depend on what the source is and whether or not we as match on a grant. So speaking just very generally, you are extremely limited, and most places will not allow you to do any pre-grant award. Until you have a signed IGA, you don't have reimbursable expenses on that grant, and any money that you spent pre-signature on the grant agreement would not count towards your match.
Okay.
There are some exceptions, right? Sometimes you're allowed 15% if you work it into your budget. But at a certain extent, you're going to need to sign a contract with somebody to build all these things. So the risk level is going to be, up to the city to decide. Like,
Could we fund, say you get everything you're applying for and we're down to 1.5 million or whatever. Could we decide to fund that from URA dollars and then, but still go out and continue to try and raise money, whether it's the grant or whether it's the state legislature or something else to backfill into the URA?
you could, as long as the source of the money that you're using to backfill does not have a limitation on that money not being spent prior to having the agreement. So if it's a donation from your neighbor, sure, they don't probably mind, right? But you would want to work that out up front, and you would need to know that up front. Yes, but there are lots of opportunities to fund this work, right? There are still sources that we can ask for cash. You could use URA or Good Neighbor dollars to finance a portion of the money. In phase one, $1 million worth of work was financed out of Good Neighbor, and we're about ready to pay that off, right? We've got, what, 2 more years, a year and a half?
I think it's over, yeah. Yeah, I think, and I think we had a brief discussion at the budget hearings in early May about potentially reprioritizing some URA funds if we needed to, and maybe some URA projects, right? So that there is that opportunity. And I think that discussion about Good Neighbor also plays into here too, right? Like if we're going to use that as a source of funds for Milwaukie Park. Those are dollars that we can, have that discussion.
I will also say that when we submit a grant, we have to submit a full project budget with those grants. And so we have already made decisions on how, let's say we're awarded that $1.75 million. I've already told Metro exactly how I'm spending it within their requirements. Now, Metro is a tremendous partner to work with. They are extremely flexible. We can change the amounts. We typically can't change the line items. If I say I'm paying for this, and this, A, B, and C. They want to see us only spend that on A, B, and C. If D comes up, they're going to say no. If I say, hey, A costs a little bit less and C costs a little bit more, we might be able to tweak that. The reason I bring this up is because while Metro is very flexible and great to work with, they don't pay for the same sorts of things that the feds will, right? So typically, the end of your construction phase, you are planting your trees and your shrubs. Well, that's exactly the sort of thing that Metro is going to pay for. So at this point, a good portion of the end of the project is paid for. Whereas the interactive water feature or the playground or those sorts of things, Metro won't pay for those things. They won't pay for the bathroom. State would love to buy us a bathroom. We don't have those grants yet. In fact, we haven't even submitted those. So each one is a little bit different. And I tell Peter all the time, construction is actually the easy part. The hardest part of my job is right now, cracking this budget before we have the consulting team and figuring a way to pay for it all. We don't know exactly when it's going to happen, who's exactly going to do it, or exactly what the final design is. So we've tried to put ourselves in a good situation, and that falls on us to figure that. I only bring that up just to say some decisions on funding have already been made, depending on the grants.
I would just say on the piece about the Milwaukie Parks Foundation, you know, I'm on that board and about somewhere between 65 and 70,000. And I count, they are ready, the board is ready to start again as soon as the IGAs are signed. But if anybody out there is watching and has $10,000 or $100,000 or $1 million, we would happily put that away in a very safe account for Milwaukie Bay Park if you want to reach out to the Milwaukie Parks Foundation. So.
I think if you were asking me about, you wanted me to give a confidence level on what our need would be, I would start looking for $1.5 to $2 million. Now, you could probably get that from a grant, like a federal grant, but that would put you in a situation where you're maybe not starting construction until the spring of 28. Is that something that you want to wait for? Now, we're not there yet. In fact, we've got $1 million grant, we got some Friday, so, but I think I'm pretty comfortable with that 4.3 number, except for there's about $1.5 or $2 million that seems a little riskier than the other money. I mean, all of this is competitive dollars. The federal money is only a $4 million pod. Less people apply for the federal money than they do for the state money. State, they saw 71 applications 2 years ago. That was a lot more than we faced in terms of competition. Quite as much of competition as we faced when we went after stuff.
I guess we've got this $1.5 to $2 million gap that you're describing. I don't quite understand how we've talked about or alluded to not wanting to delay Milwaukie Bay Park in any way. And covering that gap seems like we'll incur delays. Is it going to be a conversation? You can say it's just too early now, but is this a conversation about the scope of what phase 3 is? Is this the conversation about pull down dollars from an additional source, go out for a bond, ask the state legislature? Like, I guess, how are we thinking about how we cover this gap?
I think if we're not successful in getting those place that we look at is how do we reprioritize the dollars that we have. So having that discussion about that and the labor program funding that we can certainly utilize. So what does that look like? And how much are we willing to prioritize there? So I think that would be the first place. And then we'll look at those other opportunities. Is it something that we is there any appetite to then use the ERA as a funding source to go out and get a bond to provide more money? So there's money in the ERA budget. So
in terms of when to have that discussion, so Not all grants are the same, but the large public grants, those typically take 180 to 160 hours, and not across 2 months. Federal grant's gonna take a few more hours, probably spread out over 3 months. So if it's due at the end of October, you're looking at maybe having that conversation in a few months before October.
Now's probably a good time to give an update on the IGA front, because I think that's a big elephant in the room. So I think, I appreciate your question, Council President, but I think there's two paths for that question. One is the path for a strategy with the IGA signed, and one is a path without. The board met today to have a public discussion about the IGAs. I believe it's the first public discussion they've had on that topic specifically since negotiations began 17 months ago. It was a pretty brief conversation, and it sounds like they will be further discussing it as a board on June 24th at Concord. So no real indication as to a timeline for signing. I know the county administrator has asked the board to make or provide direction at that June 24th meeting. So we'll be putting out some messaging to our stakeholders, asking them to encourage the board to get to an agreement fast so we can begin on that plan A for this. But I think we need to see how that conversation goes. And when we come back in July, I'm putting a lot on this July 7th meeting, but come back in July when we give our CIP update, that can be a chance for us to provide an update on where that stands and a couple strategies for this very large capital project, which already has substantial CIP dollars allocated to it, could have more. But I think we need to see what's going on with these IGAs before we can really start piecing that full puzzle together. But please know that staff are behind the scenes working on those kind of two scenarios of puzzles. And Adam's just doing an amazing job keeping all the plates spinning, making sure we're not missing any grant opportunities, getting all those irons in the fire. But it is like building a quilt of different things.
Sure. Atoms are great.
Atoms are so great. Yeah, I do think, to your question about phasing, I think that's also a very good question, but I think right now, while we're in this still plan A strategy, we want to get these IGAs signed, we want to get those plans transferred over to us and have that scope project ready to go. That is already at 50%. So that is still our hope and intent, and we hope the board follows suit and signs the agreements that you have, or votes to adopt.
That's the update.
Yeah, that's the update. I encourage you to all go watch their policy session. And please encourage your constituents to send in testimony or attend the June 24th meeting and tell them how important this project is to not only Milwaukie, but the region.
Can I just say something?
Sure.
Okay, I just want to put it out there, and I've said it before, because Commissioner Savas has said this over and over, good faith negotiations. We have negotiated in good faith. This is their deal. Let's just sign it already. You're arguing with yourselves at this point. They are, really, because this is what they presented us. We went back and forth, but at the end of the day, this is what they are asking for. So I would like Commissioner Savas to uphold what he's always talked about and stay true to his word, especially during an election year, to negotiate in good faith, and that's what we've done. So please uphold your end of the bargain, sir.
Yeah.
I do feel kind of bad. There's a few other folks around here, and I know that we're well over time.
You're actually not. You got 8 more minutes.
You got
8 more minutes. Oh my goodness. Hold on. As you all are probably aware, phase 3 is not the only interest that people have in Milwaukie Bay Park. The way that I like to describe it to folks is, right, regardless of what piece of property you're talking about, right, the community loves it, and we are to be stewards of it for the future. The community each loves it in their own unique, individual way, and they all want to use it in their own unique, individual way. And through the planning process, we come up with designs. But new ideas are brought to us all the time, whether that's through formal programs like community choice, or whether that's just somebody with a great idea of what to do. So we've had some community interest in increasing the access of non-motorized swimming at Milwaukie Bay Park, and specifically to build a swimming platform or a floating dock to allow for swimming. That would be there at Milwaukie Bay Park. Community members have also asked council to consider joining into the Swimmable Cities Charter, and have asked council to direct staff to look into potential funding or potentially building a swimming dock there. And so some of the considerations, and we haven't had a whole lot of time to think about this as a staff, as a group, but you know, a dock and a swim platform, they're not currently in phase 3. Phase 3 was not to go below that walking path, below ordinary high water, and change the river channel specifically. So it's not included in the scope or the biennium budget. This has not gone through a formal public planning process. It has been brought up in the community choice. Now, speaking of community choice grant program, right, that project at Milwaukie Bay Park, that includes an ADA ramp. And the way that we kind of see it as staff, specifically the way I see it, is that with or without phase 3, Milwaukie Bay Park has an equity. We have steps that currently go down to the water and that are built to be inundated by water and covered up by water at some parts of the year and not, right? But that problem is going to get much worse if we implement phase 3. And the reason I feel that way is because we've got partnerships with FACT Oregon, we've done focus groups to reach out with people with disabilities. We are doing our best to make phase 3 as inclusive and as accessible as possible. And we're going to build all those great accessible and inclusive things, and then people are going to get down to the river and all we have is a little pair of steps. Right, so that ramp, that solves that problem. I feel like in terms of design and implementation, while it would require us to permit it separately, I think that we can get this done and solve that problem. It might have to be constructed separately of phase 3, but I think it's going to solve a problem that phase 3 is probably only going to make sort of exasperate. A dock is much more difficult to do than a ramp. Right now, we have not had our chance to really wrap our heads around a dock or a floating swim dock. I did have about a 45-minute conversation with the Marine Board. I can tell you that the first thing that the Marine Board said to me was that they were concerned about safety. Not to divulge our staff-to-staff conversation, but to summarize that 45-minute call, the Marine Board was wondering if there's not another place to do this. They also suggested if we do want to do that, to set up a more formal meeting to discuss with them and maybe bring in some of their partners at the federal or the state level to look at it. We know that there are swim docks in parks all throughout the Willamette. Those swim docks typically cost $1 million and they take years to permit. The permits that were out on Milwaukie Bay Park, this previous phases, those have all expired. My conversations with the Army Corps and DSL from 6 months ago confirmed that any workflow or very high water would need a new joint application permit. So we're not saying that this is a bad idea. We're saying that it's a complicated idea and there's potential impacts to phase 3 delivery schedule and resources. And so again, our questions for you, council, are, does council's direction remain to advance Milwaukie Bay Park Phase 3 as currently scoped as quickly as possible? And does council want to direct staff to undertake any work related to swimming access at this time? And if yes, what other parts of the Parks and Greenspace goal should be deprioritized to create that capacity?
So you said the community choice, the ramp, is going to require the same permitting agencies or no?
Well, it would require similar agencies to be involved, much more from the Marine Board, certainly. Now, the considerations of what's in that permit will be much different. And I think a floating dock in the water is going to be have a lot more complexity to the permitting. I think it also honestly requires a lot more discussion with the public as a whole. It is right next to a motorized boat ramp. The specific question that I was asked by the Marine Board is, am I familiar with the concept of a prop strike? Right? They asked me, have I ever seen what happens when a swimmer gets struck by a boat?
Well, we got an email about that today. But as I understand it, the nature and neighborhood, or the community choice proposal does call for buoys and marking off a swim area independently of a dock. Is that correct?
Our staff direction to Metro was that we cannot commit to something in the water at this time other than the ramp. They chose to put it out there with buoys because that's what
I mean, I think the community has wanted buoys for a while.
Okay.
I think when when the Marine Board changed their, a few years ago, before, you were with the city and before Emma was with the city, the Marine Board changed rules that applied to Portland in terms of speed of boats and no wake zones and things like that, that pushed frankly, especially jet skis down here, because they can circle, they can do whatever. In Portland, they can only, in big stretches of Portland, they can only go straight through, and they have no wake zones, et cetera, et cetera. So, I think the safety for swimmers today, as well as especially if we, build the ramp, is an issue, and we ought to be looking at what we can do to demarcate the swim area.
Forgive my ignorant question, but do buoys require permits?
Yes.
But I think,
But a different level, I would assume, of permit scrutiny than a $1 million floating dock?
Probably.
yeah, I did some inquiry of the Marine Board at that time when they were doing that rulemaking in Portland, and yes, I think there is a permit process, and it's maybe more even like the Coast Guard or the Corps of Engineers than the Marine Board, as I recall. But anyway, there is a process, but I would not think it's the same.
Well, if you're gonna do the navigable waterway, you're gonna involve the feds. Okay. And so it kind of depends about, how far out, how big the buffer zone is.
Anything below 19 feet of elevation will have to go through the Army Corps of Engineers, Department of State Lands, and DEQ, as well as floodplain permitting, whether that's local or federal, depends on if it's going to change the river channel. That's floating documents. So probably federal permits for that. As far as I know, I've never done a floating dock, to be honest with you. I'm a former aquatic director in the safety concern ones that I have. I would say that we also already have it out there, part of which we have to take out part of the year. So I think there's just a lot of complexity to a floating dock that frankly, we as staff haven't had an opportunity to really dive into.
Well, we haven't had an opportunity, but we also haven't had direction. So we are now at 5:32, and I do want to hear from, if possible, every council member, just kind of to get your sense now. We have received 3 community comments, I believe, on this topic. And I know, Mayor, you wanted to make sure we had a chance to discuss this. So if I can kind of go around the table and sort of hear your reflections on these questions, and then I can try to summarize maybe where we go next from there. Any brave soul can start?
Sure, I'll start. I encourage people to go to some of the people who wrote us, or people who know the Human Access Project. I actually have my little, I have there. Anyway, I encourage people to go check out the Duckworth dock along, which is kind of down, it's on the Willamette, kind of near the Steel Bridge, under the Rose Garden. It's amazing. It is really a cool place, and a lot of people go there on hot days to swim. I think the point that was made in our, in some of the communications we got about, river access being an equity consideration for people who can't afford, who don't have air conditioning, et cetera, is a valid point. I think, splash pads and river access are equity tools. I think there's a ton of questions about a dock here in terms of the size that would work, the safety, and how we would divide the Milwaukie Bay between the boaters and the people using the dock. There's an issue around water quality, right? We heard from some of the same people that are advocating for the dock last year were pushing us about water quality. And in follow-up to that, when we were having that conversation about water quality and testing, I thought they were worried about the Kellogg plant. I later, in conversations, came to realize it was less about the Kellogg plant. It was more about what's happening up Johnson Creek and sort of E. coli counts in Johnson Creek. And I've spent a fair amount of time over the last several months trying to get my hands around some testing for Johnson Creek. And there isn't a lot of recent testing available, but in the sort of 2019 to 2022 time, there were pretty high E. coli counts in Johnson Creek. I think there are a lot of variables, a lot of things that have to be considered, but I would not want to shut this idea down. I do think it's an idea worth exploring. My main thing is that it not slow us down on Milwaukie Bay Park. So if it's an idea worth exploring, but 3 years from now or whatever, is it an idea that some of these partners and people who are writing us could take a first stab at some kind of design and some kind of vetting of some of these questions and take that off of our staff? So that's my bottom line. I would not like to shut the idea down, but I don't want it to slow down phase 3.
So I don't want to impact phase 3 because I don't want to throw a wrench into phase 3. But at the same time, I guess I don't really understand the impacts to the parks. Hey, I guess we've done, some research, but I'm not even sure I'd call it a rough order of magnitude level of research. I would like to go a little bit further and get some answers to some of these basic questions about cost. And, there was some things thrown out about grants and that kind of thing. I've kind of been informed some of these grants have already expired. They're not really, valid and that kind of thing. So I'd like to bring some reality to this about what the rough order of magnitude of the cost of this as described. We don't have to redesign the community's request. Just use their sort of rough sketch of what they're looking at and come up with a rough order of magnitude of what that would cost. But I think that there's a lot of hidden costs in permitting and surveys and all that other kind of stuff. And I would just like to have, another, the next level up of detail. And I'm really hesitant to go. Going down this path could, become, a huge research project. And I don't want to get too far into this until we sort of have this, broader sort of question scope. I'd love to have it. I'd love to have it. If it's safe, if it's doable and that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councilor Davenport? The plan to implement Milwaukie Bay Park, I think, is our North Star. And I don't want to get distracted from that. But I also don't want to be so myopically focused on it that we miss out on something that's innovative that could be added into that project. So, so I'm open to at least a preliminary analysis of what this would take. And I imagine that from the time that this idea first came to be to now, there are some really innovative ways to build out a protected space. I really worry about just buoys being the deciding line between swimmers and motorized boats.
Okay. Council President?
At a 30,000 foot level, I think we should be doing more as a city to try and build our connection to the Willamette River and really encourage river access. It's such a unique asset that we have as a city, and I like this swim dock as one of the tools that we could use to connect ourselves to the river more. I think I share, there's a sentiment that I've heard so far that people like the idea of a swim dock, they have questions about what it would look like. I share that. I think a swim dock would be a really interesting and exciting thing to add to our riverfront. I think that to safety, like there is this dock that we have right now, it's already used by swimmers sometimes, and it is even more dangerous than a separate swim dock would be or a buoy system would be. And so acknowledging that I think is important. I think that I did not realize the buoys had been removed from the scope of the Nature and Neighborhoods project, and I think that's something that I would hope to keep in the.
And I don't think it has. I think staff flagged it as a concern and they, like Metro left it in, so it's yeah.
Okay. I think that that is an important component, at least demarcating, knowing that people would like to swim there, having some better demarcation, I think is important. And like Councilor Savageaux said, I think it needs to be more than just buoys, but buoys, I think, is a good starting space. You talked about paths with Milwaukie Bay Park and the paths that we'll see. I think one of the paths, the one we all hope for, is the smooth sailing where we don't have to really do any soul searching on how do we fund Milwaukie Bay Park, or what does this look like? If we're doing open heart surgery on our Milwaukie Bay Park plans, I think there's a fair conversation to say, okay, what are we doing? If we're not delivering Milwaukie Bay Park in 3 years, we're delivering it in 8 years. I think that changes the scope of what we're able to do. I hope that's not where we are, but if there is a larger conversation about Milwaukie Bay Park, then I think this should definitely be a thing for consideration. At the very least, I think we need to make sure that phase 3 is built with a phase 3.5 or 4 in mind that has riverfront access as a component. And I see the Nature and Neighborhood Grant as that 3.5 or 4 or whatever we call it. It has some overlap. There's some different permits that you have to pull. And if a river dock can be added to the scope of that Nature and Neighborhood Grant, I think that makes sense. The small thing that I'll add is they mentioned a swimmable cities resolution. It's something that Portland and other cities have adopted. It's kind of like a Be City USA resolution where we declare our intent to try and be a swimmable city with access to river space. And I think adopting something like that as a city would be a nice way to show our intent to connect with the river more.
Yeah, on that, I'm hoping that at our next check-in, maybe we can have a recommendation on that. Because I started looking at that website and there's a lot to dig through.
Absolutely. You get the last word, Councilor Coster.
Yeah, so are you saying go for the swim dock?
I'm saying,
'Cause
oh God, I said a lot.
I know, that's what I'm saying. You said a lot, so I'm trying to figure out where.
I'm saying that I would love for us one day to have a swim dock in Milwaukie Bay Park. I think there are a lot of different paths that we can have to get there. And I think our North Star is delivering Milwaukie Bay Park as efficiently as possible. If we deviate from that, I think this is a good conversation. And I think this is good to consider in the scope of the Nature and Neighborhood Grant. That's my quick version.
Why don't you just use that?
I know. I didn't get to raise my hand this time.
Yeah, obviously there's an appetite for a swim dock. And I would like to see it. I don't want to, just like Councilor Massey said, I don't want to throw another wrench, because there's already a few of them. Well, at least 5. So I don't want to throw any more, but I do want to seriously consider this. I'd like to know a little bit more of what exactly it's going to take and how this could slow down Milwaukie Bay Park, because I'm not, I'm not an engineer or developer or designer, so I'm not quite sure how the swim dock would necessarily slow it down. We're not even at the second question, are we?
No, so here's, and I might just jump in.
Please.
I think I've heard there's consensus to do a little bit more thinking, so we will do that. I'm going to actually suggest that I set up a meeting with the folks that have reached out about this, so I can have a better understanding of kind of what what legwork they've done, which then will help scope some of the legwork that we can do. I would like to say that we won't talk about this again until that next quarterly check-in. So we're not gonna put it on as a separate agenda item, and we have a lot of irons in the fire, as you heard about today, in terms of community choice, in terms of Greenspace, in terms of MVP. So even though I know it's making him have a panic attack, I'm really like kind of not asking Adam to do a lot of this work, and we'll talk internally about how we can move that forward, but come back to you in a quarter with a more informative kind of staff recommendation about this. And I think I heard also consensus. Interested in a vision that improves swimming access, still important to deliver phase 3 as fast as possible.
Yeah, I would be interested with what the mayor said in terms of, in that conversation with the community, like,
Yep.
what are they willing to kind of do in the meantime to get some of that work? I mean, this is a great opportunity to partner with the public.
I want to take your point, Adam, but we are now 15 minutes over.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is there any pot of money that is available for some outside help on this? Because I'm not a landscape architect. I, can do cost estimating based on talking to other cities and looking at other.
Let's talk internally about the operational piece, yeah. Okay, thank you guys.
I have one other thing I want to just throw out there. Sorry, guys.
It's the wrench.
You had the naming policy in your report, and that there's some work coming up, that we're gonna, I just want to throw, I've said it before, I'm gonna say it again, and I have a new reason for saying it now, which is I think we should be renaming Dogwood Park. And I think we should throw that into the naming policy discussions because my reason all along has been we shouldn't be planting dogwoods along the future creek, along the creek and in the natural area. We should be planting natural, native and climate adaptive plants. But I've also recently heard that some of those dogwoods may have to go for the underpass for the Kellogg project. And if that's true, and we're actually taking the dogwoods out of Dogwood Park, that even lends more impetus. We might want to call Bowman and Bray Dogwood Park. And so that's why I don't want to delay that too long. That's why I see them having a nexus, so.
Okay.
I would just say, don't expect a recommendation on Bowman Gray or Gulfport for 6 to 9 months.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
Thank you very much.
Hi, other guests.
All right, thank you guys for your patience. Our behavioral health and housing services update. Team, come on up.
I would say Trista would be here, but she is still on scene with another room.
That's more important.
Okay, so we have Glenn Suhanik, our behavioral health specialist, Kelly Lamb, library circulation director, and do we have Captain Elkins?
No, not yet.
Okay,
We're going to be given all of the updates.
okay.
And what Glenn was just saying is we really wanted to introduce you to Trista.
Yeah.
But Trista on
She's invited if she
situation.
got the PD right now, we're waiting on DHS to come. So we split in today. Oh, yes, great. I think, I won't bore you with a lot since we just kind of updated a lot, I think in March. But kind of, the big thing I really wanted to be able to meet Krista, and I encourage you, if you haven't, to, schedule some one-on-one time with her and get to know her. It'd be great. So I think you'll really enjoy that. Our house with outreach team, definitely the partners with Love One. And I'm just gonna roll into, who we are. So just for a refresher, we're the Milwaukie PD team. We have the house with liaison. We have me as the behavioral health specialist, and then Trista as our case manager. And just some great news on Trista is he just started school yesterday. So she's gonna be going for higher education. So we're working on that, and I'll be working hand in hand with her to help grow her, hopefully into a master level clinician.
Speaking of credentials, I think you have some news, don't you, Glenn, about your credential?
I did pass my LCSW.
Oh, nice.
And then right after that, so I always tell myself once I get to that, I will put down cigarettes, and I did that. So I'm
Hey.
22 days. The 3 milligram fellows, but I haven't smoked in 22 days, so.
Nice.
Yeah, and it was a hard test. It was 170 questions, 4 hours long. But yeah, I'm excited. That's to where I've been trying to get to, and now it's just
That's awesome.
continuing education in areas that I want to grow and learn. What we do is everything. I'm really coming alongside neighbors. And I think, I'm gonna add a little, I was with one of our neighbors today that, I think about my position, Don does a lot with the houseless population, and I'm more of just our neighbors that are housed and struggling, right? The hard ones for me are always the teens that don't wanna live anymore. And I was on scene today with one of our neighbors and their teen, and, 2 hours in, I was finally able to talk them to go to Willamette Falls, and to set up, to really, work hand in hand with, I got a good relationship with Bishna, which runs both, she runs both, Willamette and Milwaukie product. To really try to have a softer landing for this individual, that identifies as, he, him, and just is scared of the ER. It's scary. And it was a really good partnership. I just appreciate the other neighbor that really called and said, hey, this neighbor is struggling, can you reach out? So that's what I like to see when our Milwaukeeans are struggling. How do we partner? In the midst of everything. And for me, my fingers are in everything. Tomorrow night, I'm on a panel for the recovery campus. Partnering is super important. That's why in my other role, I'm the director of outreach and partnerships for Love One. This is our Love One team in outreach. I think you all know Rita, she's the star. And Don, together I call them Dorita. If you ever meet them together, it's Dorita Pack. Brandy would have been here tonight, but she had some prior engagements with her kiddo. Her kiddo's graduating, and they got a couple things tonight and Thursday night, so she said to tell you all hi. But that's part of our relationship, is really being available when we can, in person, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can all meet each other in Zoom, and it's just not the same as getting that human connection and being able to really come alongside each other and talk and get to know each other. So, same with me, if you ever want to go have coffee or something, just let me know. Here's a little stat, and thank you, Trista, for revamping our
PowerPoint.
She came with some skills. It's a really good hire, so thank you for giving us the opportunity to get some support and really be picky about the support that we got. Team Love One last year served 270 plus individuals into housing.
In Milwaukie? Or across there?
Across Bucks
Okay.
County, yep. And that is, a variety of housing, not just permanent supportive housing, but it could be clean and sober housing, temporary transitional, our temporary housing program here in Milwaukie, across the board. So, Love One also has a food box delivery program for the people that we have housed, and we do have a lot of individuals that are housed in different complexes here in Milwaukie. So on Fridays, the teams get together and they deliver food boxes to people that are in retention with the retention team. Love One's community-based, so we're not just out going for grants, because it takes a lot to go for grants, but to build the gaps and really hone in on that continuum of care where we focus. That's our new shower cart there. We got lucky and got a shower cart with 3 shower stalls now. And we have our other one at the Rotary and Providence and everybody came together to help build its 2 showers, so we now have a total of 5. This shower cart is sitting at the Father's Heart. These numbers are a little low now, if I was to take numbers now, because we're doing approximately 500 showers a month at the Father's Heart with the 3 showers there now. So people are getting clean and being able to have clean laundry at our events too. The other shower cart is going to the rural areas, probably Estacada here soon. And if y'all don't know, we did some cleanups here. We have trash extravaganzas. We don't call them trash programs because nobody's interested, but they're curious about extravaganzas. And that's where we go out and we help clean up the neighborhoods, clean up camps. We don't do sweeps, but we can come in and help people identify what they want to throw away and really get stuff cleaned up. You think about 1,020 yards. You guys know how big a 40-yard dumpster is? Yeah, that's a lot of 40-yard dumpsters of trash. So, and they're fun. You know, we bring a meal. We give people with lived experience a gift card at the end for helping to clean up. We bring services. We've had SHAW out there, which is Coordinated Housing Access, in one of the Father's Heart employees' bands, and we called it the Choppas. And we just did Choppas. And we really got to know people and get them in the housing system. And then our core of Love One is our laundry events. We have 17 laundry events a month now, all the way to the base of Mount Hood and Welch's. And then we have our event here every month, once a month at Milwaukie Laundry across from Segway. We used to be on QED every other Wednesday, and now we're every Wednesday at Bragg's Laundry in Oregon City. Laundry actually gets done there. It's nicer and newer, and people don't have to leave with wet laundry, and we were really running into that at QED. 493 tons. I mean, that's an old number too, I think. If I did to today, we pulled these numbers off of our year-end cards that we hand out, so it's a lot more. And really building the communities, and that's what we've really hoped and succeeded in building here in Milwaukie, was really fitting the community, right? If you go to an event here in Milwaukie, it's not the same as Oregon City, it's not the same as Estacada, it's not the same as Malala, it's not the same as Welch's, because we really try to wrap in the community and get people. And here's our behavioral health unit. I was hoping Trista would be here, but she's doing what we brought her on to do, and she's doing really good. I am Monday through Thursday. I'm usually here around 7. Gives me time to really get some stuff done in the morning. Sometimes I show up at 7, and Dawn is too here about the same time. And you know, there's somebody that's really feels that the safest spot is to park at the police station, and so I have a little bit better time to engage. And then I'm off around 5. Trista, I know it says Wednesday through Saturday. I haven't quite got her there yet, but she is now officially Tuesday through Friday. I really wanted her to really build resources along the way since she came from Astoria. But she's doing really good. So she's 1 day a week without me. And I'm available on the phone if she needs to brainstorm stuff. But our goal is to be Wednesday through Saturday. So we have 2 additional days covered. Yeah.
If it's okay to ask a question just through, is there, what is the need after 5 p.m.? What does that look like, and how can we plan for the future?
Yeah, I've been thinking about the future too, and there's always a need. There's a need 24 hours a day. The only thing we have right now for night times and the weekends until now has been the mobile crisis. So, I mean, I'm a 5-year planner anyways. This is how I have 5-year goals, and I come down from them. I mean, I'd love to see Krista as another behavioral health specialist and have some more case managers, you know. I mean, for the city of Milwaukie, our costs are pretty high. I mean, our numbers are around, and I'm gonna pull that, I'm gonna show you some numbers here just in a minute from January until now, I believe is what we pulled. The great thing about the system, the document system that we use is I can pull all that numbers. So I know kind of how many times we're on scene with officers, how many times we're on scene without, how many phone calls, how many police report follow-ups. So even when we're not engaging with them at night, we're following up on those police reports that land.
So would we be able to get numbers, or maybe you already have them, for the number of calls that happen after 5 PM where officers are responding or the crisis team is responding, and then those are left for follow-up?
Yeah, I can work with local and get those pulled. And the great thing about that is they're just starting to roll out a system called Gelada that is gonna give us a lot better numbers on all of that, but I'll work to get those numbers.
Okay.
together.
And one other question, I think through the SHS funding, there were proposals from other jurisdictions to have behavioral health specialists. Are you in communication with those other jurisdictions? How's the rollout going? And like, do you have an idea of whether those positions are kind of your typical like 9 to 5 or 7 to 5 positions?
We have, Val and her case manager in Oregon City. We have Brandon, he does Canby, and I think he's one day in Milwaukie. And then we have Amber and her case manager in Westland, Lake Oswego. And, we have Gladstone just got one, and she is not embedded, she's in the police department, but she is through the mobile crisis response team, kind of like Wilsonville does. I think Brandon, Val, and Amber are on call. It's hard.
Yeah.
I don't know how they do it. Yeah, I think they're on call and then the rest of us work shifts. Everybody needs, all the cities, I think, need their embedded PHSs, and I hope that it keeps spreading into rural areas.
Yeah. I know that our model has been used as an example for, either examples, that could be funded in our county, or even like, for federal site visits and things like that. So I think it's helpful for us as a council to understand how our model compares to other cities and how that whole network is building out in Clackamas County.
Yeah, and we really were, I think we were curious about Multnomah, and Multnomah was curious about us, so the city PHUs, we all got together with the Multnomah team, and a lot of them are embedded officers.
Yeah.
They go out.
Do you mean
They got.
For the sheriff's
they got a
office.
lot of them, but for the sheriff's office, they had alone, and they all came out, and we kind of, they're like, oh, this is what you do, and no, this is how you do, so it was really good to see what each other does and how it's better. I think we have a little bit more ability to connect between people with lived experience and really, or people that are not officers. When I worked for LEAD, and I worked for the police department, the connection can be a little bit harder, because sometimes I'm just saying, hey, I'm with the police department. But I've also watched it bridge the gap. There's so many in the community that call me and say, or I call them and they're like, really, the police department's reaching out? And, I mean, really, so it's been so great to watch, like, oh, they care? Because they're not used to that, the officers don't have time for that, they're not, trained on the one thing on home, they're trained. Yeah, so I think it's been in the future for a while, and it's been slowly. And we, here in Clackamas, with the House of Liaisons, have been a game changer. I think other places, along with our library, and I'll let them roll into that when they present, but it's been a game changer too. I think we're ahead of the game of really bringing in the resources into the city and not relying on county resources, even though some of our funding or most of our funding comes from the county. I think really having that you know, oh, you're with the city of Milwaukee.
Right.
It-
Yes,
it
this,
means a
the
lot.
autonomy is good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Any other questions?
Could I ask, I'm curious, how does like your department measure success? And I guess related to that, I'd assume one metric that you look at is the people that you're interacting with, are they able to get the care they need? Are you talking to them multiple times, which I imagine is common, versus like how often are they able to get to the treatment where you don't have to keep meeting with them?
Yeah, I think the biggest success would be the reduction in 911 calls and hospitalized, you know, and hospital visits. Biggest, but then it bundles down. So am I showing up for suicidal ideation and imagine it's the one and done, or is it somebody that was and it's over and over and over, and get connected, get a therapist, and get with their mental health and get back into a normal daily living routine. So I think the biggest thing is, are we reducing the calls to 911 and emergency departments? And then are we really connecting to resources? Because that's the first thing I'm going to ask is like, who's your support system? If they're when they have the capacity to answer some of those questions, do you have a therapist? Do you have a primary care provider? You know, is there substance use? You know, how are you doing with your daily living? You know, are you able to, you know, because my people I meet can be 3 years old to 98 years old. And I think I've had about
Thank you.
I think that's the biggest thing is, are we reducing the and are we connecting? Team MPD, you know, there's 3 administrators, you know, 7 sergeants, 6 patrol sergeants, 1 detective, 21 officers, and, you know, they've been really working hard at doing interviews and really making sure spots are full. And it takes, I think, I don't know the exact number, but like a long time for somebody to go through the academy and come back, unless we can get lucky and get a lateral, somebody that comes over from another department. They've been really working hard on that.
Yeah, 18 months.
Yeah, a long time. And then we have the BHU unit and Don, which does a lot of work in the city. Every week you can find him in the library, and then it's meeting with our houseless population and people struggling, not just housing. People experiencing housing insecurity and really working to connect them or reconnect them to their resources. Kind of goes to the question you asked is, you know, our biggest thing is referrals, resources, connections, basics, needs, and follow-up, right? Sometimes my follow-up, I mean, I've worked with individuals where I'm having to follow up every day in the beginning, right? Hopefully to get that down to once a week. And then the great thing about this position, and I'm super thankful, is if I'm engaging with somebody that's been involved in the mental health system for so long, used to like, oh, I have 55 minutes, they know. I got 55 minutes and then it's wrap-up time because they've been in it for so long. But then I'm like, hey, Starbucks knows me very well because a lot of the times I'm like, hey, let's meet at Starbucks and have a conversation like 20 minutes. Right. What? Why don't you just go have coffee? Right? And then we can start the conversation from there. And we go to a more private spot, some deeper conversation. But really having them feel comfortable and being in the public really has been a game changer. Yeah. And I can spend 5 minutes, which sometimes it's 5 minutes, and I can spend 5 hours if needed. Trista's been working with this mother and child for the last 3. Yeah. Here's some numbers. Then this is just this year, January to the 31st. You didn't put the, well, exact number, I can't read the exact numbers, but you can see. We're, you think about mobile with police, I just want to look at that one first, because that's our highest suicidal ideation, that's where we're getting a call when somebody needs some, crisis intervention right there. And it's coming through 911. And that's where we're on scene. That's good. We've been over 50 times from January 1 to May 31st. That's a lot of times on scene in a city for what, we have 25,000?
That's like 10 a month.
Well, we will have 25,000 when the stuff's all done. And then, you think about total calls, over 250 from January to May. That's a lot. And I thank you again for really helping to get the case manager, because she's been a game changer. And then you'll see the police report follow-ups, and those are the ones, some of them they'll still hit my desk after I've been on scene, but most of those are the ones that are when we're not working. It's a lot of calls. And then you just get basic outreach and community meetings. Sometimes this all depends on how I classify it. Sometimes when I'm meeting they'll walk in, you wouldn't be, after we build relationships, you'd be surprised to hear how many people just walk into the police station now and ask for us. Or they don't even know we're here and they walk in and they need support. So that's gonna be a lot of the community meetings. Or it could be mobile without police, or if something pops up and this person could have a lot more dangerous stuff in their past, officer might come out with me in the beginning, just to make sure it's all clear, and they'll be like, hey, do you need me? No, go ahead. But they're really high numbers, and I really wanted you to get a feel of since January to now, pretty high. And summer just got here, so the numbers are a little higher in summer. For some reason, I think people are having fun, and it peaks in summer, and then it also peaks when fall, so when you're coming out of summer and the weather kind of gets you a different type of peak where we look at depression.
Do you have an idea of a breakdown, just roughly, between those that have some type of housing and those that don't?
Within these numbers, these are mostly housed. The ones that are unhoused, I would say is probably that I engage with. That Don's like, hey, because Don does really good at de-escalation and stuff himself. But when he's like, I need support, or we have somebody that's screaming and yelling in the middle of the road. Some of these, if you're seeing these numbers is probably for me is about 10%. And then Don takes care of the rest of the house's population. But I'm usually just showing up because they're at an extreme, or maybe there's a welfare check coming in, and they're throwing stuff out in the middle of the road, or they're just screaming and yelling at somebody that's not there, and people are concerned. That's the great thing about Milwaukie is our community cares, and they don't wait around for somebody to be harming themselves or really in danger. We'll get a call and they'll be like, can you get checked on here? And if there's psychosis or somebody's experiencing delusions or something, I'll show up. So probably about 10%. If I had to just off the top of my head, out of 500, it would probably be about 50.
That's really helpful. And I know that we're crunched for time. I have one other question about the calls go through the Lake Oswego call. Yeah, LOCOM. And what type of behavioral health training, if any, is provided to the 911 center, the dispatchers?
I can get that I don't want to tell you something that I don't know. I know they're trained in different areas. I know they always love to have the behavioral health support. CCOM had one vetted for a minute. That used to work for the mobile crisis team. And if you don't know, they kind of got a lot of behavioral positions now, but I'm sure they have pretty extensive training in all areas. But I am an EMS council member, so I will bring that up in the next.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just kind of curious about how the infrastructure that's being built in the county around behavioral health users and how that is communicated back to the dispatchers. And, the support that they are aware of exists in the community when they get calls, to be able to decipher, is this a police response call or, mobile without police?
Yeah, the great thing about LOCOM, I don't know a lot about CCOM because I'm not in CCOM, but first thing when they found out about Krista, they were like, hey, can you come visit? So we went out and visited.
Awesome.
So she got to know the team, and then she went out and spent a half a day with them.
Okay.
To just kind of get to see what they do out there. And I did kind of the same thing in the beginning. They're really involved. They're really nice.
Yeah. We had a great site visit over there. What was it, like a year ago?
If you haven't been there.
3 years ago.
Was it really?
Oh, you're just right
Oh,
after you were
man.
elected.
Time flies, buddy.
Yeah.
was like right when I started.
You guys, if you want to get back over there, they're amazing. But
I
yeah, they're really
remember it
involved.
like it was yesterday.
And they'll get on the radio if they have a question, they'll ask me to give them a call. So they're really involved. But I don't know the exact training.
Okay, no, that's all right. That's really helpful.
And you guys all know about the stabilization center? In there. I got numbers on here for us because I don't have all of the numbers on who else refers in there. But the 23-hour stabilization side that Claire Vita runs for from January to May 18th, we, as Milwaukie, have put 34 referrals in there, which probably is most of the referrals across the board.
Yes.
DHU's did, and I'm tracking, we have Chris and I created a tracker, so we're tracking, if it's law enforcement brought them over there or us. So as you can see, Christopher Rise did 22. That is a little higher now because I think there's been a couple since then, and then Milwaukie PD, 12.
Are they pretty consistently at capacity, or like is it a challenge?
No, they haven't been at capacity at all. I think the most they've had in there, and they're really working on that, and the county's trying to help, is getting the other law enforcement and BHUs. Mobile Crisis, I think, is the only other one that uses it like we do. I think the most they've had in there is 2 or 3 at a time.
Yeah. And the county is trying to increase utilization. Chief is kind of an evangelist. So but I think that he would, if he were here, I think he'd say, it's hard to change law enforcement behavior. I think everyone was excited about the resource, is excited about the resource, but it is a process change. You have to kind of change your general MO of what happens. And he, at every chief's meeting, is saying, it's a great thing, guys, it's working for us, come on. And so I'm really proud of the work we did with the county on our it's now called a partner agreement, not a good neighbor agreement. We advocated and were successful. They have security. I think the chief is even feeling like the security is overkill and that we could kind of maybe even repurpose some of those resources to some other outreach pieces. So we want to see it used more, I guess.
So the sheriff's office isn't using
It's not
it?
using it.
Gladstone? I mean, I can get that, like Westland and Welsonville, it's far away, but I would think for Gladstone and
Yeah.
sheriff's office, they'd be using it.
So I worked with, I helped create the law enforcement assistant diversion program. And with the sheriff's office, it's so big, you have over 200 people that are deputies that work there. If it's not something that's easy, it's not gonna happen because it does take time, and they gotta transport. And their call volume is, there's so many stacked all the time. And if it takes any longer, in there, until they use it and realize that it's actually pretty smooth now, they probably won't use it as much.
That's crazy.
And I think, I really want to lean on too, that the county's been really good partners and not opening it up to walk in or anything like that. So we just are not flooded and it's actually a resource. They did just open it up to parole and probation. So parole and probation is a referring partner now. And I think that is going to help because they haven't issue. So I think we're gonna see if the numbers come up a little bit. But next door is full, and it's been full, and people are getting housed, and it's pretty amazing. It's an interesting partnership because you got crisis on one side and you got temporary housing on the other. And with it full all the time, and there hasn't really been any going from the one side to the other side, but like somebody that's in that amount of crisis is probably not gonna go straight over into a temporary housing program. So hopefully in the future, we have somewhere in front of us because we don't have any. But it's been really good partnerships. I try to, even if I'm not somebody to go over there, I try to just go in and talk with the staff and drop in and see if they need. I've been there for both sides to help them out. Somebody in crisis on the temporary housing side, and we've been there for somebody that was very suicidal and they could manage on the other side. So, been a good partnership. Any questions on rehabilitation or temporary housing?
We probably need to keep moving.
Yeah. Yeah, we're running.
Boom.
Well done.
How fast do you want me to go?
Sorry.
5 minutes? So here we are, this is your library management team. Great, and Kelly. But I also wanted to show you, this is Team Lending Library, this isn't all of your staff, but this is the friendly people that when you walk in the door, this is your frontline folks that folks see. They are welcoming, they are helpful, and they want to help everybody that comes in. By the numbers, over from July to June, we have increased, and this isn't, we haven't gotten a full year, 7% increase in our door count over last year. Our Tuesday outreach visits, which are just 2 hours once a week, we've seen a 28% increase in that, and we still haven't finished out that year. Patron instance, we're also seeing an increase. So we've seen an 18% increase in our behavioral partners. So people are coming into the library more and more, we're being utilized a lot. Some of the things that library staff do in terms of support for behavioral health and with our houseless population. One of the things that we hear most often from staff is training. We need training, we need training, we need training. And it's training about intervening, de-escalating, what to do in a crisis situation, because that's often what's coming in at the front door. So this past year, we've had 4 trainings for staff to get better understanding of mental health. And then mobile crisis has come in to let us know about what their resources are and how to contact them and reaching out to them. And we've also done a boundary setting training, which is really helpful because we do a lot with behavior and expectations around patron behavior. One of the things that the library offers is that consistency and trust. We're here 7 days a week. We are open, we are available. We're not a clinic, right? Or we're not a shelter. So we're open for everybody. We offer that place where people can just be, they can use the restroom. We don't ask them questions unless they want to talk to us. And they do talk to us. They tell us their stories. So we are building those relationships with folks every day. We see people, the same people every day. They are there more hours than we are. So they tell us their stories, and we kind of carry those stories with us because we are, right? And so we have our wonderful partners that we can share those stories with and have those resources available. Some of the training around mental health. And it is, but we haven't, they haven't done the full, not everyone's done the full mental health. I've done it about 7 years ago. It's not often offered as frequently as you like. But we are getting more. So, and we're still not finding quite the right training that staff want, because it really is that when someone is walking in and they are in crisis and we call police, if they're not available, on a Sunday, or we have to call mobile crisis, how do we handle that situation? And in that moment, in that public space, right, with everybody in that. So it's a challenge that we want to like I say, they share their stories. We have people that are coming in that are hungry every day, that are houseless. They need help. And the great thing is that we are information specialists. So it's a perfect fit. Like, we can get the information to them. We're not the professionals. We're not, we're not the providers, but we care. We can get you the information. So having these folks be our connections and our partners is really valuable. But it also takes a toll on the staff because we aren't professionals. We've not been trained to do this work. So that's something that I think we're always working on. So, let's see.
The food thing is always empty.
Food thing is always empty. So at we have a new little food thing, and it is always empty. So actually, it's very full almost right now. But it also is available for everybody that is in need of food. So, kind of what I wanted to do, I'm going really fast, is talk to you a little bit more about what we do on the day-to-day and look at a day at the library. So not only are we working with folks that are in crisis and are houseless, we also offer our regular library services. This is a Tuesday, which is also an outreach day, and you might even remember this, on this Tuesday, we had 913 visitors. 2,031 items were physically checked in, so staff, but those are the returns, so that's what we were processing that day. 1,900 circulations about, so items that were checked out or renewed. 26 new items added to the collection. About 40 public computer sessions, so that's 2 hours per day. We have 8 public computers and 2 children's computers. Approximately 60 Wi-Fi sessions, but that's just like that first time use, so that number is probably a lot higher than what that is. We have 20 hours of volunteer service that day. I think that was 4 volunteers that are on Tuesdays. Approximately 12 new library card holders. We do about 300 to 400 new library cards every month. So folks are coming in. Answered 153 questions. So that's at all of our service points, children's desk, circulation, and reference. We had 5 library programs that day, and that included community outreach, and 101 people attended the programs on the story times. And then we had 18 meeting and study room reservations that day. So our facility is used all day, constantly, and it is a busy, busy place. And you never know what's gonna happen. Like today, we had a car fire. So, and it's all good. It was a normal Tuesday. So we're doing this, so we're doing all of this, and we're also spending a lot of time with patrons that need a lot of care and a lot of assistance. And so we're kind of that maintenance. We've got folks that we see every day that we're helping and that we're passing on their information, because there's only so many of us, right? Upcoming, summer. Summer is the busiest season at the library. So if you haven't gotten your summer reading log, please stop by and pick that up today. It's for all ages. We are doing the free lunches in the park, so that's 0 to 18, and that starts actually June 29th. That's out last year's calendar, but that's Monday through Thursday, and that's along in the park. There'll be parks can serve a bag lunch that can be eaten on the lawn for children. And then cooling center, of course, the library will serve as a cooling center again this season. We are yet to see what's going to happen, right? And that is just one photo of a typical Thursday in the summer for a program. So we are a busy, 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 busy place. So please stop by and please understand, that this work is. We're so lucky to have this community that cares so much and is so involved. It's not like this at every library. So the support that is given to the resources that we have is
Thanks, guys. Sorry.
wrap that up.
All right, thank you guys so much. Yeah, sorry we cut you short. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Keep up the good work.
All right, we are adjourned and we will start at, we'll try to start at 6:45.